I'm calling it. Okay. All right. Here we go.
You're on record now. We'll see. Both these teams, especially hungry Emily, too, coming off the wrong side of sweeps as Minnesota starts things off with a service error by Melanie Schaffmaster.
Service pressure is going to be big for both sides. Minnesota's a very tough serving team. That means Oregon has to lock in and serve receive. Oregon, on the other hand, they have to find a way to knock Minnesota out of system because the Gophers do struggle passing time to time.
They serve McKenna Wooker. Taps it over and gets the kill from passing to attacking, successful for the Gophers.
Watch the Gophers to be a little bit more shoddy and tippy tonight, throwing in off speeds more often than they normally would because Oregon is such a big blocking presence up front.
Both these teams tremendous at the net, third and fourth in blocks per set. Minnesota in conference play right up there with the size of Wisconsin in terms of their block against conference opponents. Polabiak with the bump set. Julia Hansen, a recent Big Ten Player of the Week. An opportunity for the Ducks with the free ball. Noemi Glover still keeping it up. And then terminated right up the middle by Onia Fabu.
You win matches in transition. This was Oregon's perfect opportunity to get the middle going in a broken play situation, but that's what makes their middle so good, especially Onia Fabu, number 13 in yellow. She is so good at getting off the net.
Someone who redshirted last year coming up from the mid-majors as Minnesota surrenders another ace. They allowed 13 in their sweep against Washington. Head coach of Oregon, Matt Ulmer, in his fourth season, back-to-back Elite Eights for this team. Has a lot of familiarity going up against Keegan Cook when they faced each other as head coaches of the Ducks and the Washington Huskies. Julia Hansen steps into it and fires. Schaffmaster back set, looking for Lydia Grote. From the back row, Owabete. Hansen going right through the block. And Mimi Collier slicing it cross court.
Mimi Collier is so fun to watch because she makes plays like this, slicing it inside, even the best blockers up against her. She has the ability to turn that right thumb down and hit a sharp shot in front of the 10-foot line.
She had 52 attempts in a 3-set match against Nebraska, and something with the 6'2", but also that security blanket as well as Julia Hansen will misfire another point. 12 days, but very familiar with each other's systems, philosophies as well. Grote, big rip and a kill for Minnesota that they needed after a 4-0 Oregon run.
That's a huge answer for the Gophers right out of that timeout. Good timeout taken by Keegan Cook just to reset the team. You can't let the opponent go on a run early because that sets the tone for the match.
Zaina Polabiak back to serve for Minnesota. Targeting Owabete. Upper will fire.
Oregon right out of the gates is doing a really nice job distributing their offense with balance, meaning they're getting everyone involved, and those hitters are doing a really good job being available for their setter at all times.
That's something that's defined this Oregon team throughout this season is just the plethora of attackers they do have. There are just multiple options every time. In this 6'2" especially.
This is something that's been new to this Oregon team just in the last few days. Against Nebraska, that was the first time we saw the 6'2" debut. And now we'll see this new combination come in with Gregoire and Purashai.
Purashai over to Collier, the go-to, but the pancake by Melanie Schaffmaster. Too long there by Grote, and a point to Oregon despite the defensive efforts.
Minnesota just handing Oregon points right now. The attackers, especially at the pins, are trying to do too much and put it on the end line. At the end of the day, the ball has to stay in the court.
Roberta Purashai serving in this 6'2" system without their defensive specialist in libero. Daly McClellan missing her second straight match. Another kill for Oregon. They are on fire here. Collier with the swing.
One massive benefit of a 6'2" is you always have 3 attackers front court because your setter is always in the back row. So even in out-of-system situations, you kind of have 2 options at all times, one on the left pin and one on the right pin.
7-1 run. Hansen right into that formidable block by Oregon. gets it right back and terminates.
Julia Hansen has exploded this season. She has done such a great job knowing that if she's going to get this ball, she might have 2, even 3 blockers in front of her, but she is never afraid to take a rip.
When she was the Big Ten Player of the Week, October 28th, had 5.3 kills per set in 2 wins. Just an outstanding season, and especially stressed with the junior. Schaffmaster goes right back to Hansen. And she is the hot hand to try and crawl back into this first set.
Hansen has been so impressive, really embracing this role as an attacker, becoming the go-to really for this Minnesota squad. Not afraid of any block in front of her, even one of the best in Oregon.
Cook says, I want to give her the credit, not just me, for the way that she has seized, having just got a pressure on her shoulders, taking the most swings, leading this team in points as well. Traverti tapping it over. Hansen goes into the block, or into the net rather, that time. A point to the Ducks.
Good idea from Hansen on that ball. The only shot that she had was to rip it cross court, but you still have to swing high, even especially when you're off the net.
Her second air has 2 kills, hitting 0 at this point. Collier at the service line. Minnesota out of system, but flying in Purishai with the pick. Into the block, another kill for the Ducks, being aggressive.
Oregon's being very aggressive up against a good Minnesota block up front. Now with Callie Engelman in, a middle blocker that hasn't had too much playing time, she's going to have to know that the offense is very balanced and she has to make very disciplined moves and get those hands over fast.
That swing by the redshirt freshman Sophie Gregoire. Hansen tipping it over the block, and that works to perfection.
Much better adjustment on the outside. The last swing that Hansen had went out of bounds. This time taking a little bit off of it, putting it right over the big block in front of her.
She's someone who has worked so much in the offseason and improving this year. Going into big blocks, knowing what you're bound to face in the Big Ten, Oregon, certainly one of those teams with their prowess there. Oh, Abete hammers it. Wooker tries to push it over, and a point to Oregon. More great defense at the net with Gregoire.
Defense happening on both sides for Minnesota. It's been in the backcourt. Check out this dig from Polabiak, getting under it just in time. Then it's the front court defense of Oregon to put it right down. It's a defensive battle already.
I think we would have known that going in. It's not just the blocks and digs, but just the aggression philosophy of both of these teams. Schaffmaster tried to keep that in play, but a point to the Ducks as they continue to roll here in set 1 to be cleaned up for this Minnesota team. And Coach Cook, Emily, said it's one of those, you look at the box score and just scratch your head. You can't wrap your head around how that result happens.
And this is why coaches always talk about it coming down to serve and pass. When you get aced 13 times, when you make 11 service errors, that's nearly a set in itself.
Hey, it's not a cliche.
No.
It can rear its ugly head anytime. Kind of Wooker with the swing. Bete off the block perfectly, and Oregon continues its efficiency. They have no attack air in this set.
This is a massive flip from what we saw how they started out against Nebraska. They're in this 6-2 system, meaning they always have 2 setters coming in. Sometimes that provides a little bit of inconsistency out on the court. This is a much better showing for the Ducks.
Coach Ulmer said, of course, we institute this new system, have to face Nebraska of all teams, but it looks like they're really clicking in this system at the moment. On the slide, Phoebe Awalea, her first swing. Up the middle, Ofebu emphatically crushes it to the floor.
Oni Ofebu is so dynamic when she's up there. The set doesn't have to be perfect, but watch her adjust her arm swing mid-air because the set isn't exactly where her arm wanted it. Such a dynamic and athletic player.
Hit 182 against Nebraska, excellent against UCLA a couple matches ago. In the back row, a blast from Hansen and an opportunity for the Gophers. Wooker into the block, and the Ducks are fired up. They have silenced this sellout crowd.
Not only can Ofebu put the ball down on offense, but defensively, if you want to test her out, you better hit it as hard as you can or hit the seams because she's going to block you every time. 5-1
run for Oregon. Another back row blast, and again to the block. Oregon providing no seams at the net.
So early on, Minnesota's tested out the block a few times, and what they've found is that ball is coming back at them even quicker than they're attacking it. Minnesota now has to make the adjustment, go for the edges of the block or fingertips if you don't have a seam, because right into it isn't going to work.
I mean, these are comebackers we're talking about with the speed. You can see on the baseball diamond, this Booker is able to get it to fall.
That's a much better adjustment on the attack, going with the tip rather than that hard shot, just putting it right in the seam.
Is it going to take some creativity from Minnesota here?
Every team that plays Oregon, it takes creativity to win. Because that block is so good, you have to change the way you run your offense somewhat.
Ofebu will take your breath away with that swing.
Ofebu having herself a day, already 4 for 4, leading Oregon in kills. Those are numbers that you don't normally see from a middle attacker. What that tells you is how good Oregon's passing in transition has been, in a really impressive set from Kristen Klein as well.
Well, Bette at the service line. Schaffmaster, a tight set. It's going to be a point to Minnesota. Minnesota hitting 0 in this first set compared to Oregon's 381. But they have a great server right here at the line in the redshirt freshman, Alex Acevedo. Someone capable of igniting a run for this team. Klein, the bump set, looks to Collier. Grote has to charge in awkwardly, and Oregon comes away with the points.
And that's just a mishandled play on Minnesota's side. Palaviuk coming in to make that second play. Try to get the ball up to her right side, just way too tight.
Especially coming off a loss on their home court. Minnesota unsteady here, down by 10 at set number 1. You see the blocks there, 4-0. Hansen going over the block. Right there, though, is Klein. Glover, the pancake by Palaviuk. Klein goes right back to Glover, kept in play by Schaffmaster. Always capable of big defensive plays. Collier off the block, and Minnesota will pick up that point.
2 missed opportunities for Oregon, 2 easy plays, free balls on their side. Those are the plays that you have to capitalize on, put right on the money and put down right away.
Palaviuk gets it in play. Klein up the middle to Verdi with the soft touch. Hansen unleashes the heat for the kill.
When there's a seam in the block, Minnesota's doing a really great job exploiting that on the outside. Watch how big this seam is for Hansen to attack. It's a decent pass. It holds the middle, and all of a sudden it's going right down in the seam. No one's going to get that.
Hansen already with 16 swings in this first set alone. Collier puts away the soft shot.
What a smart decision from Collier on the outside. This is one of the best off speeds that you can have as a left side attacker. Just right over that block into the middle of the court, because it's anyone's game at that point in the back row on the other side.
One of 2 Ducks along with Ofebu on the ABCA Player of the Year watch list. Outstanding in her first year in the Big Ten. Schaffmaster looking to Grote, and she's denied. Oregon all over the net.
This is why Oregon's block is so tough, because it's not just their middles up front. It's all around that front line. Anybody can take a massive play at a big time, and this time it's Collier putting it right down.
Collier, 6'3", outside, make those kind of plays. Grote has a tap right back, and Oregon continues its dominance.
Oregon is doing such a great job up at the net, being disciplined in their block. Watch how far these hands get over the net. They know exactly where it's going. A great finish there by Neal.
Schaffmaster, Hansen picking up the kill, badly needed for Minnesota. Oregon inching toward match point, set point, excuse me. Now Grote to serve for what has been a challenging set for the Gophers. Into that Minnesota block. Excellent effort by Polabiec, but the Ducks again get the point.
A really good up from Polabiec on Minnesota's side. Just kind of gets in her own way there for her other teammates to make the point. Watch this chase down, number 12 in white. Just an incredible left-handed up, but the ball comes right back on top of her.
You could tell she was trying hard. How can I get out of the way from my teammates? Nothing she could do.
It's the worst.
Speaking from experience. Parashai chases it down. Schaffmaster looking for Engelman on the slide. And kept up by Oregon's defense. They are flying around the court in set one. Right back to Engelman, and that is perfection for this Minnesota offense.
This was the reason Callie Eggman earned a spot on the starting lineup, because of how good this slide attack is. She is so good running behind the setter on these quicks. Didn't land the first one, but then gets a second try at it, and a phenomenal finish this time from 16 in black.
Oregon picks up another 23-12. Now their lead, and it has felt just robotic the way they have been able to pick up points in this set.
Oregon's been on top of it in every aspect of the game. Defensively, they're already up to 16 digs, 6 blocks, and then offensively, hitting over 300.
Can't ask for much better.
No.
Schaffmaster with the dump.
Schaffmaster has to continue to establish herself as a threat up front. She's a big physical presence up there. If that ball is tight, Oregon has to expect her to go up and take it over.
She's 6'3". She's one of the most offensive-minded setters in the Big Ten, too, and I think a good spot for her right now. Lauren Crowell off the bench. Up the middle, Ofebu. That has been unstoppable. Emily, 5 of 5.
She's been outstanding. The pass has been even better. Michelle Owabete has been getting targeted and serve receive. She has handled it near perfectly every single time. That allows the middles to get involved for her team.
You're right. Owabete has looked unfazed in serve receive.
That was one of the biggest things in this 6-2, especially in 2 passer rotations where she knows she's getting targeted, but can she handle it? And what we've seen, she absolutely can.
Another player like Ofebu coming up from the mid-major level and excelling here under Matt Ulmer. Owabete. Looker right into that block.
Oregon's block just been the entire story here throughout this first set, already up to nearly 7 on the day.
Schaffmaster trying to lead a run here for Minnesota. Oregon with its second set point. And Oregon will take set number 1, putting on a clinic in
a little bit tougher to take away that balance that Oregon has because they're passing lights out.
And Emily, as we were going to the break, I saw Minnesota gather up together and huddle up, and I can just assume those conversations about just resetting and put that set behind them.
Yeah, it's got to be a full reset mindset right now. You have to go out, completely clean slate, say, hey, let's go win the next 3. Doesn't matter what happened during set 1. We have to find a way to just improve.
Oregon had just 2 attack errors. As Emily mentioned, hit 344 in set number 1. To do that on the road, and after they lost to Nebraska on their home court, clearly a mission and statement made so far. Up the middle, Awalea. And Oregon continues to play it. Again, Awalea up the middle. Collier absorbing the heat, Polabiec. Ofebu almost with the denial. And then Ofebu finds the floor. Offense and defense for Ofebu.
Defense working hard on both sides just to keep the ball alive. Free balls going left and right. Minnesota has a scramble play, finds a way to get it over. But if you give Oregon a free ball 9 times out of 10, it's going down because they have that player right there who's been lights out.
Also on that Player of the Year watch list from the AVCA. Collier into the Minnesota block. That's what we expected in this matchup.
That's also the momentum that Minnesota needed. Nothing gets your team hyped up quite like a block does. This was read so well by Awalea, and those hands just stifling at the net.
Awalea is leading the Big Ten in blocks per set, 1.78 against conference opponents. She has been dominant this season up front.
What makes that number crazy, too, is normally your numbers go down in conference play because the Big Ten is so good, as Oregon puts that one down, but her numbers have gone up.
She had a stretch where she was out-blocking teams, where she had incredible dominance. And you see her numbers there versus the non-conference. You're right, that's quite a difference.
It's a massive difference. And again, I mean, the Big Ten is so difficult. It's the best volleyball conference in the nation. Normally, everyone's numbers for the most part go down, but she's just elevating her game.
Her six-match stretch had 51 blocks earlier this season. Minnesota coming back firing after a set one loss.
The biggest difference that Minnesota needs to have in the second set is swinging with power and swinging high. This was a perfect example of Julia Hansen in an out-of-system situation. Not a good set. All she did was swing high for fingertips.
Hansen, 6 kills, leading Minnesota, followed by Wooker with 3. That time, an ace for Minnesota.
That ball was served perfectly by Lydia Groh in the backcourt, dropping it right in front of the passer. It's so difficult when you have these types of serves that just catch the air pocket. Barely any movement on that at all, and jumps right in front of you.
That time is targeting Owabete. First lead for Minnesota of this match. She does it again. Collier got the touch.
Another really smart decision, this time on Oregon's side, of if you do have a big block in front of you, normally in out-of-system situations, meaning the setter is on the move, the side knows exactly where the ball is going outside. You just have to swing high against it to get the point.
Collier, 16 swings, 6 kills, hitting .250. Parashai has that one drop off the table. Hansen with fire through the block.
Really great adjustments on Minnesota's side. Julia Hansen is doing a much better job, not barreling it right inside the seam, but really going for fingertips, going for the edges of the block, and it's working out.
Minnesota leading by 1. Much better response so far. Hansen serving right now has 7 of her team's 13 kills in this match. Great look, beautiful offense by Oregon. Gregoire with the kill.
Getting a little bit crafty in the way they're running this offense as well, because they're not normally in a 6-2, meaning they don't normally always have 3 hitters up front. They'll still run that right side in front on a 2-ball through the middle and have the middle go back on a slide behind the setter.
Not looking like this is their second match playing a 6-2 and against the ranked team. Wooker with determination.
The message had to be clear from Keegan Cook in that huddle. Hey guys, we're getting blocked off the court. We have to make some offensive adjustments. This is a much better turnout right now for Minnesota, making that adjustment to swing high.
In the first set, Oregon in multiple ways was the aggressor. Minnesota now looking like they're taking that mantle.
And this is what we've seen from Minnesota all season long. This is the kind of play that has allowed them 2 top 15 wins already.
Gregoire has come in with a couple big kills. She's got 4 on 5 swings.
And Oregon's going to need to have her in that offense and be a presence up there as well. She's just not in there to take up space. She's in there to get some kills.
Someone who's come up big as a reserve for this team. Plenty of depth for Oregon this year. Shaftmaster going to Wooker. She's been the hot hand in set number 2 with her 5th kill.
Both Wooker and Hansen are doing a really great job going after that 1-6 seam, meeting between right back and middle back, targeting that on the outside of the block.
And it's been Hansen in Wooker with 12 kills of Minnesota's 15 overall. Really depending on those pins. Shaftmaster gets it into play. And some miscommunication from the Ducks. Throws into the block aggressively.
That was a difficult ball for Lydia Groh to get through because the block was right there waiting on it. Just not a good enough finish right there from Afebu. Those hands have to be up quicker.
Before that swing, Grote Had 4 airs on 8 swings, but she snapped right back into it with a strong swing. Speaking of strong swings, Owabete.
I love watching Owabete on the outside. She's only 5'10", but she jumps through the gym, and the attack point is pretty much the exact same as the blockers in front of her, who might have 3, 4, 5 inches on her. Check out how high she gets on some of these, especially going up against Lydia Grote, who's got 4 inches on her, going over her.
I think we're all rooting for those undersized pins.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
100%. Grote denied by the Oregon block.
Oregon's block is a wall up front, especially when the other team is at a... Watch them bring their outside blocker in to help on a triple block. Get the ball in this situation. That provides even more space for the attacker to hit through.
Really nowhere for Grote to go right there with that triple block. Free ball for Oregon. Glover drills it.
When Oregon gets a free ball, their offense is lightning fast. Even the pass to get on the setter's head is not very high, so the blockers on the other side have to read a fast offense, see what's happening right away. Oftentimes you see that seam, and the hitters are going right their way.
Oregon taking back the lead here in set 2, and add another to it with an ace.
Oregon continuing the service pressure on Minnesota, and this is where Minnesota
hit 500. You have Stephanie Samity with 17 kills, 24 digs as well. An absolute epic matchup. Point going to Oregon after that timeout.
An early timeout taken again by Minnesota, finding ways to try to stop Oregon service, because Minnesota's serve receive can really struggle, and we're seeing it right now.
Kristen Klein has been on target, making things tough for Minnesota. Klein looks to Owabete and kept up by Schaffmaster. For the back row, Collier taking some heat up. And that works for another Oregon kill.
Nearly a broken play on Oregon's side. They set way too low for Collier to get, but Minnesota working real hard to try to keep these balls in play. Check out this play from Wooker, just throws a hand on it to get it over, and nearly a miss set on Oregon's side, but Collier finds something to do with it.
Klein igniting this run for the Ducks. Grote, big swing and a big dig by Collier. Minnesota not able to get it up, and with the touch, it's a point for Oregon.
What a smart shot from Owabete on the outside. It's a really fast set. The block didn't necessarily have time to get there, but she also didn't have time to adjust her swing, so she just went right for fingertips to send it off. Really high IQ play.
Owabete, 9 airless swings, has 3 kills. Right up the middle, Awalea coming up with a big kill for Minnesota.
When Minnesota gets a good pass, it's really tough to stop their offense because Awalea and whoever the other middle is normally very good offensively. It's just a question of whether Minnesota can get a good enough pass to run them.
They've been heavily dependent, especially in this match, on those pins. Looking for that versatility. Up the middle again, Ofebu, 7 of 7.
It's a different story on Oregon's side because their passing is so good. They're in system at a high clip that allows all options on offense. And when you're in a 6-2, you always have 3 up front. It's really stressing out Minnesota's defense.
Owabete at the service line. Hansen has that tapped back. Glover. Firepower on display for the Ducks and Glover.
Just sheer athleticism from Kristen Klein as well. This ball was so tight on the pass, but Klein turned her shoulders facing the net so she could make this side set all the way out to Glover to put it down.
Grote crushes it. Meanwhile, over on the bench, as McKenna Wooker was talking with the trainer. We'll keep an eye out if we see her on the court again here.
Wooker has been in and out of the lineup this season, dealing with injury on and off, still on a day-to-day schedule, said Keegan Cook.
It's been a lot of trying to just manage her load, thinking long-term for this season for a Minnesota team that wants to go deep in the tournament, too.
Yeah, I mean, the volleyball season's so long, too. You have to be so smart about, whether you're playing a player or not and how good they feel, because you don't want to burn them out come December when you really need them.
Booker third on this team in kills, behind Grote and Hansen. Count that as another ace for the Oregon Ducks, who have continued to roll in every facet of this game. A timeout call.
Minnesota needs better communication on that back line.
On the Big Ten tailgate today, she said, my pick, Ducks by a million.
Of course, she's got it.
No bigger Duck ambassador, I think, than
yeah.
the recent WNBA champion. Hansen hammered right into that block.
Minnesota's answered really well out of these timeouts. Keegan Cook has done a really great job identifying when the team just needs a breakout on the court and calling it early enough to where Oregon can't go on too long of a run, and they're siding out quickly.
And that's something, too, Emily, in set two, where you can read those things about your team when you have that experience and have been together in those tough moments. An ace for Minnesota, trying to crawl back into this one.
Lydia Grote going off at the service line again, her second ace of the night, doing it in a way where she's dropping it right in the seams. Doing a really nice job from the end line.
This is great to see from Grote, too, whose offense hasn't been efficient today, but trying to make an impact in different ways. Line chases it down, pushed over, then back. Hansen pushes it into the block, showing the creativity needed against the Oregon block.
Minnesota's going to need a lot more of that creativity offensively. It can't always just be hard swing, hard swing. They have to know that in out-of-system situations, they've got a big block up there. Just be smart with it and go off the fingertips just like that.
Oregon had 6 blocks in set number 1, just 1 here in the second set. Grote, though, the run will end as she goes into the nets. With a 3-0 scoring run for the Gophers.
For the Ducks, number 6, Volleyball. Also in inside, number 21, Roberta Purishai.
So Roberta Purishai back to serve for Oregon. Trying to go up 2 sets to nothing on the road against a top 15 team. Schaffmaster looking for that dump, well read by the Ducks. And then the touch, giving them the kill.
So oftentimes we talk about bettering the ball. If it's not a good pass, okay, make a better set out of it. If it's not a good set, make a good attack off it. This was a perfect example. Not a very good set, but Collier knew exactly what to do with it to better that ball.
I'm wondering how many times you heard that from coaches in your life.
So often, so often.
It sounded like it, right?
I mean, when the pass isn't good, oftentimes as a libero, which is my position, you have to find a way to just put up a good second ball. And then normally the second ball might not be perfect, so that attacker has to go up and make the adjustments.
Hansen now up to 10 kills for Minnesota, and they're within 5. And she'll go back to serve. Collier has that tipped. Acevedo into the action with Wooker still on the bench. She gets another swing into the Oregon block. Chased down by Thibault, and she gets there. The former Duck in Minnesota keep this point alive. And then the termination with the crowd getting into it. But no, Minnesota is given that point, igniting this pavilion crowd.
Kate Thibault running after this, looking like Usain Bolt back there. Watch her pump her arms. She gets all the way from the front of to that back line, nearly taking out some people in the stands.
Original call.
This last play.
Point Minnesota.
That's it.
Oregon is challenging and the ball was in.
Oregon, meanwhile, in the second set, 13 kills on 22 swings, just 1 attack error, hitting .545. Back throw tipped over by Hansen. Right there, Purishai. And Gregoire again has come up with another kill for the Ducks.
The difference in set 2 has been Oregon's offense has been lights out. They're hitting over 550. Minnesota's defense just doesn't have an answer. Offensively, though, they're hitting over 300, so the front court for Minnesota doing their job. That block, though, has to make a difference.
That just sailing out for Collier. But talking about defense, this is a Minnesota team that wants to make that their identity. They're second in Big Ten in digs per set. Seems like they really embrace that role, but it's just not happening here.
Well, the biggest reason has been the block. Minnesota only has one right now through nearly 2 sets. Normally, this is a team that is averaging 3 blocks a set.
Up near Wisconsin in terms of blocks per set in Big Ten play. That's saying a lot. Collier ripping it out of the back row. Bette into the Minnesota block, and will play on. Collier again pushes it over, and it will go to Minnesota, making it a 5-point game.
Collier had the right idea on that tip, trying to take out that off blocker. It was one of the only shots that she had, just going a little bit wide with it.
Just a bit.
Close.
Skylar Gray is serving specialist in, has that sail too long.
Those are the plays that you just can't have as you're trying to claw your way back in the set against a top 15 team. You have to play as error-free as possible.
In the red zone, too.
In the red zone now for Oregon, meaning from point 20 on.
21-15 is the Ducks' lead. They have stayed calm and composed here in the second set. Acevedo picks up a kill for the Gophers.
And 2 Ducks back there just caught looking at it. But again, that's what happens when you have players checking in that don't normally see the court. Gamache and Collier right here, middle back and left back, just caught looking at each other. Normally, you have a libero out there who's going to take it in Mackenzie Morris.
Acevedo was a member of this Oregon Ducks team, redshirted last year, came out of Idaho, now her first season in Minnesota. Bette. Acevedo is denied by a brick wall.
This is the first set that Acevedo has taken swings in, but we keep seeing her test out the block time and time again. She played against these players, and now she's realizing how big this block is in real time. She has to make that offensive adjustment and swing higher. Right into it is not working.
Kristen Klein back to serve, so solid. Has an ace today, but has done a great job of getting Minnesota out of sorts. Oh, just like that. Glover stepping into it for the Ducks. Bette testing that Minnesota block as well. Back row flying in is Collier, but that sails too long. Point to the Gophers.
Maybe Collier is getting a lot of good looks, just not managing those swings really well. If the set isn't perfect, you have to find a way to adjust your arm swing mid-air and keep that ball in play.
She's got 8 kills in this one so far, but hitting 167. Someone hitting well, Ofebu. Now 8 of 8 for this Oregon offense.
I mean, she's perfect tonight. She's doing an incredible job offensively, 8 for 8. 5 blocks already so far. She came to play in a top 15 matchup.
Rhodes gets it over. Ofebu has that kept up. First time she hasn't been terminal. Hansen off the block and a point to Minnesota, scratching and clawing here late in set 2.
Minnesota has to keep swinging. They're not going to win this set on tips. These hitters up front have to stay aggressive, just like this swing from Julia Hansen.
Glover, a lot of strength, but Minnesota's block right there for the rejection.
The swing taken by Glover, but even coming back faster is Eggman up front. A little bit late to that block, but gets her hands in a perfect position.
Matt Ulmer is going to call a time. Minnesota team. Balabia got the service line. Ofebu, there's been no answer for her swings.
She has been absolutely outstanding, and both setters are doing a really good job getting her going in different situations. That time in serve receive, but they're doing a really nice job in transition as well, getting the middles involved.
She is perfect no longer, but I think she'll settle for being 9 of 10 at this point. Hansen into the block. Goes at it once more and picks up the kill.
Those are the plays that Oregon's block has to make when they know exactly where the ball is going. Your hands have to be in the perfect position, but kudos to Hansen for just swinging away at it. And in a broken play, nonetheless.
Lydia Groats, one of the best at the service line for this Minnesota team. Hansen fearlessly with strength over the net, but kept up. Schaffmaster looking for Engelman on the slide. It will fall, and Oregon will take about that next match.
Yeah, and look, the players on the court, they're not thinking about what this means to RPI and all of that. It's great for us to talk about, and it's what this match means, but the players aren't thinking about it.
Alex Acevedo, an ace for Minnesota to start off this desperate third set.
Minnesota needs a lot more service pressure here in the third set. Oregon did a really nice job running a balanced offense through the first two, so Minnesota has to knock them out of system, and that starts on the end line.
Acevedo back to back. She has relished this role at the service line, her first full season of college volleyball.
This is huge for Acevedo coming in. The Oregon transfer, she is very familiar with all of these players on Oregon's side, picking apart that serve receive.
Fabu tipping it over. The back row, Acevedo on the attack, and she has her Gophers fired up.
All of a sudden, Minnesota's got a spark plug, and that is Alex Acevedo. Not only getting the aces from the end line, Schaffmaster getting her going in the backcourt offensively.
She had some big matches earlier this season, especially when McKenna Wooker has been out. We have not seen her in quite some time. Went to the bench in the second set, has been dealing with injury throughout the year as Minnesota racks up. No, the pun you just came up with while we were in break, Acevedo. Maybe the first one to ever think of that.
Yeah, it hurts.
Oregon strikes back, just what they need after a timeout.
That's a good answer from the Ducks right out of that timeout, nailing the pass right away, finding ways to get out of it. Good timeout taken from Matt Ulmer, not letting Minnesota go too deep.
Oabete at the service line for the Ducks. Up 2-0 on the road in a top 15 matchup. Collier, a lot of heat on that swing.
Collier putting everything she had into that one. You can see the frustration on her face during that swing, just trying to rack up points for this Oregon team that had that 0-4 deficit to start.
So balanced for Oregon. Fabu 9 kills, Collier 9 kills, Gregoire with 6 herself, and it continues down the line. So many options. And the block clicking again.
Oregon's block has been the difference. They had 9 blocks through the first 2 sets. Those are insane numbers. Minnesota needs to do a better job of covering. Watch this attack. Only 2 players are really into help. All 5 players that aren't attacking that ball need to be into cover.
Minnesota is used to being on that opposite end where they are consistently and significantly out-blocking teams like they did against Washington.
And so it's kind of surprising that they look surprised every time the ball comes back at them.
Alyssa Minity coming off the bench this time. And then the block for Minnesota response.
The block for Minnesota needs to continue to step up. Oregon has been hitting well over 300 for the first 2 sets. Minnesota's block was non-existent through the first 2. They need a little bit more of that momentum and defensive prowess up there.
We've talked about it, but worth repeating, Emily, that Minnesota is an excellent blocking team. They're not used to having this kind of disparity right there. That play, that's what we're used to seeing from the Gophers.
Minnesota averaging about 3 blocks a set right now. They have 3 total blocks through 2.
Elise McGee, serving specialist in for Minnesota. Hansen, a big grip, still makes it over. Alea has that denied. Hansen, a triple block and still registers the kill.
That's a gutsy swing up front from Julia Hansen. With 3 blockers in front of her, she still attacks it. Those hands weren't pressed over enough on Oregon's side. That allows her to tool it out of bounds.
McGee and ace. Minnesota, solid from the service line in set 3, and they lead by 4.
Minnesota's third ace of just this set. Oregon has to do a better job talking about these seams early on and who's taking.
And it's been reserves, players like McGee, like Acevedo, coming in off the bench and making it happen. Oregon responding with a kill off the swing from Glover.
Awalea in a good place to make this block. Those hands just not quite pressed over enough, a little bit too high.
Oregon within 3 now. 4th kill today from Glover. Back to serve Mackenzie Morris. On the slide, working well for the Minnesota offense. It's Awalea putting it down.
Finally, Minnesota getting that middle attack going just a little bit better. This has been a massive focus of this offense, getting middle involvement. The only times you can do that is on a good pass. Perfect time.
Melanie Schaffmaster also incredibly dependable at the service line. Nice pass from Owabete, and that's the result.
That's exactly what happens when you have a good pass. That allows all options on attack. And Oregon in this 6-2 system, meaning they always have 3 attackers up front. They have 3 offensive options up front.
Glover, a couple of kills recently, bringing Oregon within 3. Purishai. Lauren Crowell can't get that to fall. The point to the Ducks.
Lauren Crowell in for right side. Lydia Grote, who had been hitting negative up until that point, just trying to get a new look up there. But Lauren Crowell's been great every time they stick her in a match.
Versatile athlete. Great defensively, too, according to Cook. Hansen can't get that to fall. Another point for Oregon as they inch back to a 1-point contest.
Minnesota's got to stop the bleeding here, keep the ball in play. They had a good 4-point lead on Oregon earlier in this set. They have to keep that.
That's 3 attack errors, and that's what's going to happen with a free ball for the Ducks.
Depends on who they're playing. For example, Oregon played Nebraska the other night, but they've had plenty of matches where they've had a top team come in and they've never had that kind of attendance.
Collier couldn't put away the free ball, gets another swing. Hansen taking some heat off. Collier does not.
Now we've got this back and forth battle happening. Collier in a difficult position to make a play on this. Better decision might have been just go over the block into the middle of the court or take the setter out and right back.
I got a piece of that ball, Emily, and my finger feels like it's ringing. So you can imagine
that was off speed. Think about taking one on your platform. You get bruised for days.
They're tough out there.
It's tough.
Another kill for the Ducks. Collier back to serve. Goes right at Hansen. And Booker back in. We haven't seen her since the second set. Was talking with the trainer. Bete, another swing into the block. Crowell having to readjust. Right there, Schaffmaster with the dig. And Crowell with the finish.
Minnesota's finding ways to just better the ball and do something with nothing. Chaos is happening on their side. It's not an ideal situation. Body is all over the floor, but they're finding ways to just keep the ball in play.
Mentioned having not seen Booker since the second set. She's now back in, trying to stave off a sweep on their home court. They've lost just 2 times here at the pad, including a couple nights ago against Washington, but then you have the Ducks still clicking.
This is a must-win set for Minnesota. They are down 2-0 in this match, backs against the wall. This is when you find out a lot about your team and their ability to push back.
I think, Emily, it's important here, too, with about 7 matches left of the season. You want to see that kind of fight, how that team responds in this situation. An ace for Oregon. Every facet of this game in their favor.
And Oregon's doing such a nice job on the service line, really picking apart the passers on Minnesota's side, and this time in a 2-passer rotation, so there are plenty of seams to hit.
Another player off the bench, Belgamash, making it happen back-to-back, keeping it rolling for the Ducks.
All of a sudden, Oregon back on top in this one. Kristen Klein doing such a nice job targeting the passers, not hitting the same seam back-to-back, really varying up where she's hitting it.
Minnesota allowed 13 aces against Washington in their most recent match. That is going to help them out up the middle. A kill by Phoebe Awalea.
A really good response from Minnesota, nailing that pass, getting the middle involved, providing a little bit more balance to this offense. And now Schaffmaster's up front. She has to make sure she establishes herself as a threat.
Another Minute with that kill coming off the bench in this match for Minnesota. Oregon, though, with the 1-point lead. Big dig by Thibault. And it looks like an injury. Sophie Gregoire is on the floor. Clearly in pain. Matt Olbar coming to offer support. And targeting Collier. Bette into the block. On the slide, Minute. And a point going to Minnesota with the net violation.
Now Oregon does go back to that 5-1, so you'll see Kristen Klein, the setter, number 8 in yellow up front. And more options, too, for them to vary up the offense, maybe bring a Febu on a slide as well. Now just trying to figure out whatever combination they want in the backcourt as well.
Isabel Patterson, new into the game for Oregon. Klein back set, there's that slide, and Ofebu.
That's exactly what Ofebu is so good at, but you don't oftentimes see that in a 6-2 system because you have an attacker there. But here in a 5-1, when you have the middle playing next to the setter, that allows for them to run on this slide behind them. And that's one of Ofebu's most lethal swings.
And even though they've been doing this 5-1 all season, still Oregon having to flip a switch here in a critical third set.
Yeah, and they haven't been practicing it for the last few days as well, so it looks like it might take them a sec to get used to it, but that connection between Klein and Ofebu has been so good all season. No misbeats there.
Another attack air by Minnesota, and Oregon will take a 2-point lead. Klein strong at the service line. There's an ace. 6 aces for the Ducks.
And Oregon finding ways to turn it on again, watching their teammate go down, but they have not missed a beat out there.
Klein targeting Polabiak. Acevedo into the triple block. What can you do in front of that crowd?
And he was pushing his fans, saying, hey, you guys got to get your butts out there earlier if you want better seats.
On the slide, it is Minute. Minnesota right back to it, trying to stay alive here in this match. The back row Collier will sky and fire.
All of a sudden, Oregon has flipped a switch. They've done such a good job in the second half of this set, getting that offense to click a little bit better and keeping the ball in play. Oregon
has looked completely unfazed in this match and dictating every part of it. And Rooker back in, goes into the net. Another point for Oregon. The roll continues now 6-0 the run. This even after seeing a teammate leave the match with an injury, Sophie Gregoire. Not too long, Minnesota with the points. Alex Acevedo checking in from Minnesota, and she was critical for this team, making it a back-and-forth third set with her work at the service line. Tipped over by Ofebu. Hanson is denied once, this time tries to go high hands. Oh, Bette on fire, but that just will miss. Point Minnesota.
Obete trying to go for those fingertips. It's a good shot, just barely missed on the execution. A little bit too high on it. Trying to swing for fingertips, just missing a little long.
Again, targeting Obete. Julia Hansen with the solo denial, but kept up by the Ducks. One more time through the seam, and she terminates.
This is where Minnesota has to continue to take big swing after big swing. They're not going to come back in this match by tipping the outsides, and everyone else have to continue to unload on these balls.
Acevedo, an important run here for Minnesota. Hansen annihilates that ball. Nothing run for Minnesota. Acevedo with the service line causing problems. Obete with the kill despite the effort from Zayna Polabic. Still has a smile on her face even though she crashes into a chair and maybe some knees.
I don't think I've ever seen her not have a smile on her face, and even in a situation like this, she goes for the kick save out to the chairs and kind of gets tangled up in it, but again, she always got that big smile.
Uplifting, positive, always that kind of presence. Shaftmaster, but picked up by Klein. Hansen unloading there. Glover absorbing the heat as Polabic into her chest. Hansen into the block.
Julia Hansen has been the difference maker for Minnesota. She's taking the big swings when it matters most. This is a player that is going for the kill shot. She becomes the go-to late in sets, and Minnesota is going to look to continue to go to her.
16 kills. The next highest for Minnesota is Wooker with 5, so she has handled a significant load offensively. Leia can't put it down, and somehow the ball is kept up. Glover into that block to perfection.
This is when the defensive intensity also picks up on both sides. Oregon trying to finish this one. Minnesota trying to claw their way back. No ball is going to hit the floor without a body next to it.
Oregon has looked hungry from start to this point, coming off the wrong end of a sweep against Nebraska on their home courts. And looking to finish the job, leading by 3. Not before Hansen tools it off the block.
Hansen coming up big again, taking the big swings in the big moments. She is the definition of clutch.
And that is such an impressive jump for Hansen. When you go from just a situational back row player to now leading your teams in kills and having the fearlessness to take that swing. Glover has been the go-to, and for good reason for the Ducks, another kill.
All of a sudden, Oregon inching closer and closer to a top 15 sweep. This is where Minnesota has to turn it on and play as clean as possible from here on out to catch up.
Isabel Patterson to serve, coming into the first time in this third set. Hansen, not a lot of space, but she makes something of it.
Now, even with Hansen going to the backcourt right now, expect Melanie Shaftmaster, the setter, to keep her involved in the offense because she is the hot hand. And late in sets, that's exactly who you need to get the ball to.
Someone Keegan Cook definitely trusts hitting from the back row. Line, look at the Collier, that's sent back. Obete with a lot of heat. Crowell also denied. Acevedo seeing a lot of sets here in set 3. Crowell, another swing. And still the defense coming up with it, but Oregon is going to come up with the point there with the awkward contact.
Oregon's block is so good. 4 different times during that rally alone did the ball come back on Minnesota's side. Minnesota's trying to cover all they can, but Oregon is stifling up front. Nothing's getting through them.
These aren't just blocks from Oregon, they're blocks that feel like they echo. They reverberate on the other side. Acevedo tries to go over the block. Too long, no touch, and Oregon inching closer to match points. Lydia Grote checking back in for the redshirt freshman Acevedo, who performed admirably here, especially at the service line in set 3. Foul into the block, and Oregon fired up. They have match points.
The ability for Oregon to bounce back after Sophie Gregoire came down, and that tells you just how tough this Oregon team is.
Also withstanding every Minnesota run to this point. Grote gets a piece, keeping Minnesota alive. They're within 4.
Grote checking back in and making a difference for Minnesota, trying to chip away at that lead. Again, big swings are going to have to get it done.
Zayna Polabiak, the first full season as a regular player, taking over for Kylie Moore. And serves up an ace and a fist pump to go with it.
All of a sudden, that door is cracked open from Minnesota, starting with service pressure. Polabiak putting in a bullet from the end line.
It's always fun to see when those international players who did not serve at her position growing up have the confidence to go out and do that at this level. Klein looks cross court to Abete, but a whistle is going to give